So very good afternoon, everyone. It's exciting to see all of you here. And with me are two people from two different continents who are making a difference to innovation around the world. So as the host introduced, I have with me Cecilia Skingsley, who is the ex-deputy governor of Swedish Riksbank, the oldest central bank, right? Cecilia, the oldest central bank, and I've been to the city where it all started. She is currently leading the BIS Innovation Hub, as you would know, and she will talk about her work. And Soraya, who is the Deputy Governor of National Bank of Rwanda, a very well-known leader in the space of financial inclusion, financial innovation, not just in Rwanda, but globally. So the topic is innovation for inclusion. So I'll just lay out 30-second context. We've been all speaking about innovation, innovation, innovation. And I'm the CEO of the Reserve Bank Innovation Hub. So isn't it interesting how this is playing out? So our motto is innovation, inclusion, impact. I haven't used it in a while. Innovation, inclusion, impact. And I think that is the basis my team came up with, is innovation for inclusion. Because innovation cannot be just for the sake of innovation. So we have two leaders. So I'll start with you, Cecilia. So, as a head of the BIS Innovation Hub, could you provide the insights to our audience and how the Innovation Hub is driving financial inclusion, and how can innovation hubs like BIS play a pivotal role in encouraging collaboration between central banks, government, private sector players, fintech firms? So all yours.
Thank you very much. All the simple questions, that's excellent. First of all, let me say that I am absolutely excited, delighted, and also humbled to be sharing the stage with two real giants in this space. I'm turning to you, Rajesh, and really would like to congratulate you, and you've probably heard this many times already, but you deserve it again. The astonishing performance in terms of improving financial inclusion in this magnificent country. You have really done a lot, and you keep doing a lot. And every time I come here, I'm really taken aback. You should be very proud. This country is really going full speed into the future in the way it serves its people, and I love it. It's very great inspiration. So innovation, central banks, innovation hubs, what's it all about? Well, the way I think about this is that central banks are central bankers walk on this planet with the objective of provide societies with a good version of money. And a good version of money are typical. You recognize them because they meet people's need in having a safe store of value, an efficient medium of exchange. So the stable store of value and making sure that it can work for making transactions. That's the essence of central banks. And we also know from history that if banks are getting into trouble, if there are financial difficulties, crises, the credit intermediation doesn't work, very soon, very little other economic activities works as well. So having financial stability, having something called monetary stability, that money works for people every day of the week, 24/7, is crucial for central banks. And a lot of magnificent things are happening in the tech space. Technology can now can happen to anyone, anywhere, all the time. And central banks needs to be on top of this, understanding what's going on, in the same sense that we need to know what happens in the cyclical aspects of the economy with unemployment, inflation, industrial production, etc. The structural sides, the changing in the economy, but also the tech. And that's why the Innovation Hub was set up, to follow and understand and report back to the central banking community what's happening in those new novel technologies and how can it affect the roles of central banks, how we do our job, but also have a high ambition in terms of can we actually use the technology to do a better job ourselves. And that's where the hub is located. So we have centers across the world. We are working with central bank digital currencies, financial market infrastructure, open and green finance and reg tech and subtech cyber security. What we do is we experiment with technologies, we identify problems or places where there can be room for improvements. And let me just say as a end point here that if you tap into our webpage, bis.org, you will see a lot of these different projects that we're doing in this space. And I'm particularly proud of, in this part of the world, to say that we have some really exciting projects coming in the making. Nexus is one, which is about trying to connect countries' instant payment systems, so you could be able to send money P2P or P2B, if you like, instant, cross-border, cross-currencies, and one connection only, and then people are off. But I can speak at length to this, but I'll stop there as an introduction.
So those of you who are working on cross-border payments, please tune in into BIS website, the BIS literature, because that is perhaps the best source to talk about cross-border, whether it's CBDCs or cross-border payment, correspondent banking arrangement. The complexity of correspondent banking is not easy, but they have decrypted it for us. So I would urge all of you to please, look at what BIS is doing and BIS Innovation Hub in particular. I'm learning myself last 15 years or so about whatever BIS does and try to read a lot, but you churn out too much literature. So the mandate to my team is every Monday, somebody has to present what is, churned out by the BIS. So coming to you, Soraya, Rwanda is known as a leader in technology and innovation. That has led to growth in digital financial solutions. So what are the key specific initiatives that National Bank of Rwanda and the government has taken that led to this adoption of mobile financial services in a big way?
Thank you very much, Rajesh. And first, let me really say that I'm really happy and thankful for RBH and NPCI for having invited the National Bank of Rwanda for this Global Fintech Fest. This is our first participation, and we've been looking around at the innovations and all financial innovation, digital solutions that are available here in India. And, we can see the similarities of solutions that could be applied not only to Rwanda, but also the whole of Africa. So coming back to your question, probably I'll first give a context of the digital evolution of Rwanda as a country. So since the year 2000, the government of Rwanda really decided that information communication technology and digital economy would be the backbone of our economic development, with first a 20-year vision, a strategy to lay the foundation. And today, when we look at how even government services are offered digitally, looking at one e-government platform called Irembo, which means gate in Kinyarwanda, which now has 100 government services where any Rwandan citizen looking for birth certificate, driving license, do it through that portal digitally. And then one can ask, where does the digital financial services fit in? So the National Bank of Rwanda, we are the Central Bank of Rwanda, and in one of our mandates is also financial sector development and financial inclusion. And starting, I would say, around 2008, 2009, on the backbone of the mobile money revolution, which, as you know, started in Kenya, our telcos also looked at mobile money services. And at the time, as a central bank, we didn't have any regulation to allow a non-bank to offer payment services. But yet we had seen really how transformative mobile money had been, and worked together with the telco company to, one, put in place a regulatory framework to allow telecom companies to offer payment services. And secondly, we also worked on modernizing our own infrastructure as a central bank to make it more digital. One such project was having an integrated interbank payment system, which started in 2011, and before that we didn't have any. Secondly, what we did was to make sure that creating an enabling regulatory environment that allows non-banks to come in the space, as I said, telcos, but that's what has allowed fintechs as well to flourish in the country. We have not only revised our payment system laws and regulations, but also are among the first countries in Africa to have a law on data protection, which has given more comfort to investors in digital solutions. And lastly, I think the other digitalization of being land registry, for instance, the Credit Reference Bureau, that has enabled our country and the adoption of mobile money. Today, when we look at mobile money penetration, which has allowed us to increase financial inclusion, before mobile money was introduced, only 48% of Rwandans had a bank account. Today, we are at 77%. Secondly, that also spurred the adoption of electronic payments, where when we look at 12 years ago, the volume of electronic payments or transactions represented 0.3% of our GDP. And today, they represent 112% of our GDP. So it has been really transformational. And probably we'll get also time to talk about it. Which challenges do we now see in one, fostering that adoption of digital payments, but going beyond just payments? How can people access funding, insurance products using digital solutions?
Oh, thanks, Soraya. Soraya, did I hear it right? 70% of adults use mobile money?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have currently more than roughly 70% of people using mobile money.
Yeah. So that's something for all of us, those from India. Obviously, UPI is great, but there's a lot to learn from countries like Rwanda, as 70% people use digital payment solutions. So that's an interesting learning, and we are working closely with National Bank of Rwanda for cross-learning. Going back to you, Cecilia, in the context of fostering financial inclusion, how does the BIS assess the potential of new technologies in terms of how does it help inclusion, and what factors contribute to Hub's confidence that a technology will indeed drive innovation? I know it's a bit of a tricky one, but we're trying to get insights into the working of the BIS Innovation Hub. Yeah.
So I've been in banking for about more than 15 years, and I went to central banking about more than 10 years. And I think the whole notion of central banks actually playing a very important role in supporting, enhancing, driving financial inclusion is an issue that sort of seems to be growing every year. And I find it really exciting that more and more central banks are looking into the possibilities that technology can offer. As we heard, that Rwanda has been on a tremendous journey, is still on, and others are doing that as well. That wasn't the case sort of 10, 15 years ago. Financial inclusion, I think, was sort of something that other authorities were more interested in than central banks. So this is a great trend, great direction that central banks are going to, and exploring technologies to make sure that people in society are having the access and the choices to the financial services of their preference. So what do we try to do then in the BIS Innovation Hub? So as I said, we have 7 centers across the world. They have working with different field of areas. And I like to think about it as, although we don't have explicit objective to support financial inclusion, if we do a good job helping central banks moving even faster in this direction to support financial inclusion, we have done our bit. So how do we do this? So first of all, I think one of the beauties with the Innovation Hub, and I know that it's being sort of copied in individual central banks as well, is that we have a separate IT environment, which means that we can take higher risks, we can have try more new technologies that kind of traditional central banking don't yet want to do. We can work in a cloud environment with sandboxes. We can easily work in a collaborative space with other central banks, but also with the private sector. We are absolutely aware of all the skills doesn't sit in our organization or the central banking community. We need to collaborate with the private sector where they can teach us possibilities, what can be done, and having a separate IT environment is key in that space. We'll also allow ourselves to be inspired by the best, which is the tech industry when it comes to work methods. So we work with sort of design thinking, agile methodologies, and we nurture the culture of failing fast, failing forward, and try to avoid sticking to old truths and to the old guns for much too long, which is also can be a bit of a challenge in the central banking world, who loves to sit and explore questions, perhaps sometimes for years, and then write papers and then come up with a decision. And this operations is completely different. We work fast. We try to come out with findings within a year. If we think it has merit, we continue with various projects. And if we think, now it's time to stop and allocate resources to something else, that's also fine. Again, coming to an end, failing fast is a cultural attitude that we definitely live up to, and we're trying to get the central banking community to do that as well, within sort of their limits of their operations. And I think the last thing I'll say about this is that I think our project portfolio is one of our greatest assets. We have about 20 different projects that sort of keep rolling in the different areas that we have been identified as the critical points forward. And then we collaborate with, well, build coalitions of the willing in a sense. Nexus is one example, the fast payment connection device. Mbridge is another one that is prominent in Asia. And there are others coming in too, because yeah, you can't get anywhere without these collaborations. And as I said, technology can hit you anytime and anywhere, but in order to make it work for people, protect public policy objectives about inclusion, easy access, but also things like privacy and integrity, protecting integrity, you have to work in a much wider sphere. Money is something that is much too important to be handled by bankers and central bankers only. It's a much wider issue, and you have to bring in all the various stakeholders in society, and that's the spirit where that is in the spirit we aim to work.
Thanks, Cecilia. Now we'll pivot to a different set of questions, which would be very, India-Rwanda context. As we all know, India is, over 2/3 of population is dependent on agriculture. I'm sorry, Soraya, I didn't do the homework on what percentage of population depends on agriculture. But you would like to talk about that, the fact that, I wish I remembered the numbers. So could you please share some initiatives that Rwanda has taken to ensure access to formal financial services in agriculture sector? And what are the challenges that you see? And I'm glad I'm asking this question after you visited our booth, with full disclosure.
Thank you, Rajesh. Probably starting with agriculture, we've been struggling with really having products, or having our banks, one, pick an interest in agriculture, but also finding ways to de-risk that sector. Today, agriculture represents close to 65% of employment in Rwanda. Yet, the lending portfolio of banks at a macro level are less than 5% going there. So some of the initiatives had to come from government, or partnership between government, private sector, but also the development partners. And one of the initiatives was to set up a national agricultural insurance scheme that allows farmers to get access to loans, but with an insurance scheme that's fully financed by government, That was one initiative. The second is a project that we work on with the World Bank, $300 million to really subsidize and de-risk not only agriculture, but make it more commercial. And now farmers can get access to loans on an interest rate of 8%, which is still high, but it's compared to commercial rates that we have between 16 and 17%. And thirdly, another initiative is to look beyond the banking sector. How can we get long-term financing to agriculture or to our farmers? But for that, there are some obstacles that we need to really break, and barriers. And the first one being, one, of course, financial and digital literacy for our farmers. Second, building capacity within our banking sector of people who are specialized in agricultural finance. And then there's also been the issue of, as much as government has put and funded the insurance scheme, how is it operationalized? Because, you know, for farmers, and I think this is not only specific to Rwanda, taking an insurance is still seen as a cost. And it's not until, you know, there's a disaster coming that then, you know, farmers realize the importance of that insurance scheme. So we've been really, as a central bank, working hard with the industry to educate our people on the not only the insurance sector, the benefits of insurance products, but also making sure that the insurance products that are put on the market really addresses the needs. That's where the microinsurance comes in, to try to address the specific needs, even if it's insuring one cow, that it's still possible and not look at larger volumes. So these are some of the initiatives that we're taking. But I think the challenges that I've mentioned are also opportunities for fintechs. How do we develop, you know, more data for the agriculture sector, being on the production, but also weather-related data that facilitate farmers, one, in increasing, but also predict their production, but it's used as alternative credentials for banks to be able to also give out loans more to that sector.
Thanks. I wanted to ask a supplementary question, but I'm looking at the watch, so maybe we'll obviously leave time for some audience question. So Cecilia, coming back to you from your vantage point when you work with global central banks, what do you think, you know, common themes that you observed in the last about 2 years that you've taken charge, and you were earlier at the central bank, and specific instances of innovative approaches that you've seen in the global south, because the problems of the global south are different from that of the global north largely. So what do you think are good practices that you observe and you're collaborating with some of the central bank?
First of all, you have to really stay updated given the fast pace in what you call the global south. A lot of great progress is being made. In short, I think we're more and more in the world going 24/7, instant settlements, and aim for a sort of buffet of cross-border services. And if you think about it, that's how we conduct the rest, many other parts of our lives. Netflix is always available, Facebook is always open, so why, and you know, we can connect instantly. So it's a natural behavior that we also think about financial services as wanting that to go sort of down the same road. That is not trivial to get that fully on. We are seeing a lot of progress, but there is a lot of work to be done still. And a couple of words on the way there that we need to be mindful of is that one finding I see from the northern side of the world, if I may call it that, from Europe and from US, Canada, is that people take the digital society for granted, but they are mindful about their privacy. They don't want to be reduced to products, many of them. They don't want the data to be misused in a way that they haven't approved of, and in many cases there are some nasty surprises in how data is being used and shared. So we are hearing that. I think it's important to look into different ways to use technology, but ultimately regulations and structures and protecting individuals' privacy and the right to privacy, because I think that is a core issue in a state, in a government, in a public sector. And benign government looks after its societies and its members of the society's privacy and the right to privacy. It's also very easy to get excited about technologies, but we have to make sure that it stays resilient, so it works. Offline services, it's especially important when we run more and more on our phones, the financial services, and the way we conduct our daily lives. I also like to point out the importance of competition. And here I think the public sector, central banks, and regulators can think a bit more about how to make sure that infrastructures are open, so it becomes easier for new players to come in and innovate and see if their services could fly. And there is a trade-off here, because if you have very open infrastructures, you may find yourself as a regulator, a supervisor, having new animals coming in that has a very different business model from the old, compared to the vested interest that already sits there. And makes life harder as a public sector servant. But I think it's still important that we try to provide open systems, because competition can very easily get squashed in the financial industry, because if you're big and beautiful, the probability that you can stay big and beautiful is very high, and that's a tricky thing that we have in financial services compared to many other sectors in the world. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Thanks. So, Soraya, we've been hearing about big techs, FANG, and whatnot. But as we understand, India with a population of 1.3 billion, the African continent with 1 billion plus, what do you think is the opportunity for cross-border collaboration? And we have a number of fintechs. I'm sure we're looking at opportunities that exist beyond borders. So what is your view? What are the key enablers that have to be, as policymakers, we have to look at?
That's a great question. Looking at really the fintech space in Africa, it's growing very fast with a potential to raise close to, I think a McKinsey report, close to $3 billion in the next 2 years. And opportunities that we see as Rwanda is one, the same way mobile money has really transformed the way payments are done, but also being an anchor to, let's say, digital lending, is the same opportunity we see in fintech. So 3 years ago, as Rwanda, we launched the Kigali International Financial Center, with 3 areas of competitiveness that we think we have, being a Pan-African fintech hub, green finance, and impact investment. So we're trying really to attract as many fintechs as possible, not only to serve Rwanda, but to use Rwanda as a gateway to Africa. And we're leveraging really the single market that's created by the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which is a trade agreement between 52 countries in Africa, and which will allow liberalization of financial services. Say a fintech that's based in Rwanda can serve the other countries in Africa, and we're looking towards building sort of harmonizing regulations so that you don't have to be licensed by the 50 countries. Secondly, that access to 1.2 billion market from one single country is, I think, for Indian fintech that have already proven their solutions here, it's easy to scale them up to a similar market. and being in the payment system, the remittances, but also in microinsurance, lending, and so forth. I was really pleasantly not only surprised but amazed by the digital lending to farmers that RBAH is developing, and I could see how it can be replicated to a country such as ours. So there are many opportunities in fintech, but I do also reckon that any investor, being Indian fintech or financial institutions or global financial institutions, they have to be assured that the regulatory environment in any country they come to in Africa is solid, which is, has been the reforms that Rwanda has conducted, I would say, in the last 15 years. Today we are considered the second easiest country in Africa to do business by the World Bank, just after Mauritius. And this is really a result of those reforms to ease doing business, to make sure we have a regulatory environment that matches international standards, but also to be able to attract talent, not only in Rwanda, where we have partnered with international higher education institutions such as Carnegie Mellon, that has set up its Africa campus in Rwanda, and training, being data scientists, IT engineers. The African Institute of Mathematics and Science is another one. So as long as we invest heavily in infrastructure, invest in the regulatory environment, we needed to also attract the talent that matches it. So we do hope to attract more investors from India in the fintech space. Thank you.
Thanks, Soraya. We have time for maximum of 2 questions. Any questions that anybody in the audience has for Cecilia or Soraya? Or for me? Yeah, there's somebody here, yeah.
Hi, Cecilia, Soraya, and Rajesh, sir. This is Himanshu from Finbox. My question is to Soraya. The question is around so you have talked about how financial inclusions have happened in Rwanda in terms of bank accounts, payments, mobile money, and all these things. I wanted to know more about how the sector is panning out for the lending sector or the microfinance when we talk it about. And there you need there is a need of more alternate data sources to sort of, let's suppose you were talking about the farmers, where you need more data around obviously the farmers, how they are financially, how financially stable they are, and obviously other parameters that are sort of external to them, like how is the weather and all these things. So if we talk about somebody who is a common man in Rwanda and wants to sort of take a loan, and seeing the numbers in Rwanda where the smartphone penetration is around 23%, but the Android percentage in that is around 78%. So my question to you is, what sort of alternate sources of data is National Bank of Rwanda utilizing to source of sort of evaluate a borrower, and what is the roadmap for that?
Sure.
Thanks.
Thanks. I'll start with your first question on the financial inclusion journey. Through mobile money, in terms of opening, I would say what we call the mobile wallet or the mobile money accounts, that has increased the number of formally included people in Rwanda. But also the microfinance, especially in the rural area, where at every sector, which is sort of a smaller unit than the districts themselves, we have what we call the savings and credit cooperatives that were set up to really make sure that we reach as many people as possible. On the second question on the alternative credit data, there's a project that the National Bank, as central bank, we have started working with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, as well as the Business Development Fund, which is a fund created to really de-risk underserved communities. And what we're trying to use as data, or having our commercial banks use as data, is to look at, be it on the revenues, the production, but as you mentioned, really the reliability of data is still one question. But we're hoping that in tapping into the SMEs, having them accept to share their data because they know they will get access to funding, that is something that we're starting, and we're hoping that that project will be able to demonstrate that you don't necessarily need a traditional collateral based on land or property, but that you can use the track record that every SME would have created a digital blueprint and be able to access funding and not lose money. So as regulator, we thought it was important that we embark on such a project so that banks, that we regulate, feel at ease that they can also look into those alternative data credit, and when the proof of concept is successful, they can roll out and start lending more to MSMEs and in the agriculture sector.
So with this, we come to an end of this session. Please give a round of applause to Cecilia and Soraya.